Yeah, I mean, it is a scandal, I would say.
The Minister of Education has labelled anti-vax parents as pro-plague. Meanwhile, cases of measles continue to be reported on a weekly basis around the country. One of New Zealand's leading experts on infectious diseases, Professor David Heyman, says it could have been avoided.
If enough people in New Zealand were immunised, you wouldn't get these larger outbreaks because there just wouldn't be enough people to be infected in New Zealand. And similarly, if everyone did that across the world, actually you'd end up with measles being eliminated entirely. One of the great things in New Zealand is because there was mass immunisation at one point in the late 90s and has continued through, that actually New Zealand eliminated endemic measles. So all the cases that we're seeing now have originated in another country.
The link between vaccination and autism has been disproven.
Yes.
How much of a problem is that now?
Yeah, I mean, it is a scandal, I would say. The studies that have shown that one study that started all this have involved millions and millions of people, and those millions and millions of people, the studies of those have shown that there's really no correlation between people being immunised and developing autism. And that's been very clear. It's probably one of the most studied things on Earth, actually. I mean, there are millions of children that have been in these studies. So, I mean, I know when I take my own children there, you're still anxious, and that's because I know what the side effects are. But you have to think, what is the harm that I'd do if I don't? And the chances of serious harm if your child isn't immunised and gets the disease is actually great compared to the actual mild side effects from any immunisation. And the other thing that you're doing is if you vaccinate your child, you're also protecting people in the community that can't be vaccinated. So there are some children and people that can't be immunised because maybe they've got an underlying medical problem. And by you being immunised or immunising your children, you're preventing those children from ever being sick. New Zealand's doing a really good job with the young children now. Actually, what's interesting is there's older kids at, let's say, school age and early university age who actually haven't ever had either of the vaccines. So, yeah, so we're getting there.
Is there a socio-economic profile of people who don't vaccinate?
So in our studies of New Zealand data, we looked at about 1,000 cases, actually. Most cases were in more wealthy Europeans and more wealthier both the young and then the school-age Europeans. But if you look at vaccine rates, if you like, so if you actually take into account the number of Europeans, for example, compared to Pacific Islanders, in the very young, it was more likely to be the case that poor Pacific Island people would be more likely to be a case. But actually, yeah, socioeconomics don't play a big role in this. One of the great things about immunising children against childhood infectious diseases, for example, is that you reduce the chance that they get sick from secondary infections, and that reduces the need for things like antibiotic use. So, and there's really good evidence to show that if you immunise children for measles, those children are also protected from other childhood infectious diseases because their immune system is actually stronger. They haven't been suppressed because they've been unwell from the measles. And that's been shown in long-term studies in the UK that immunisation has actually, for measles, has actually reduced other childhood infectious diseases, including actual ones that have caused death. So yeah, there's really good evidence to show that immunising has these other indirect effects.